All right, everyone. I am extremely excited for the opportunity to speak with Kim Butler. She is one of my mentors. She has really changed my trajectory when it comes to the way I think about money, the way I think about math, the way I think about living life. And I'm super excited to introduce you to her today. Kim has been in the financial industry for an extremely long time. She's someone that Robert Kiyosaki recommends. She's someone that Tom Wheelwright recommends. She's someone that Garrett Gunderson recommends. She's written 10 books. She is dedicated her whole life to bringing the value of whole life insurance to the world, not just through her own business, but through training other agents and other advisors. She's a giver, and I'm super excited to bring and introduce you to her today so that you can get to know her and feel of her passion for finance and passion for getting the truth around money, around math out to the world. Thank you, Kim, for being here, and really grateful for your time and sharing your time with our audience today.
Absolutely, Justin. It is a delight to do, and I'm honored that you were curious and that your community is open-minded to learning.
Yeah, I am super excited because you have just recently, you've written 10 books. You have a new one coming out called Busting the Budgeting Lies. And that's why I wanted to bring you on so you can promote that book and explain what is the value of that book and why are you calling budgeting lying? Because I think that's going to throw some people off. And I think it's just a good opportunity for you to explain your expertise in this area so that people can want to go buy your book.
Well, thank you for that. That is such a great question. Why are we calling budgeting lying? And like so much of our lives as it relates to our personal finance, math has nothing to do with it. So we know that math has a direct relation to personal finance, yet our lives rarely have a direct relation to that math. I mean, just think about it. All types of personal finance try to involve math in the discussion. Maybe it's how long do you want to work? What age are you going to retire? If you had died yesterday, what needs to happen? These are all typical mathematical equations that we can calculate, and the math is correct. It has nothing to do with our daily life. And there is no more extreme example of this than budgeting, because every human being on this earth that cares about their personal finances has sat down and mathematically computed a budget, right? Money in, total money out. It could be green, in other words, there's money left over. Could be red, meaning there's not any left over, but it doesn't matter. In the next 30 days, that mathematical equation rarely happens. And so the mathematical equation is a budget, and what happens is not that. And that's why I call it a lie.
Yeah, I really like that because that resonates really well with me because I used to be a school teacher. And as a school teacher, obviously, I'm doing what you just said. You're trying to keep the money in, the money out. But life is too fluid. There's too many events and activities that happen at all times. And here's what happens, at least in my experience, in my life, is when the fluidity happens and some life events happen that increases the spending, you feel guilty and you feel like upset and you feel like you're on this treadmill that keeps you never getting ahead. And it gives people the idea that they're never going to get ahead, and they start giving up and they start not caring as much and they start being reckless and they start not doing what they should be and not leaving an impact. It changes the wrong idea. And so I really think you're onto something, even though it probably catches people off guard by saying it's lying. I think there's some truth to it.
Well, and you're so accurate in that life is fluid. That was a great term that you used there. And so what are we going to do? Like, what's the solution? I'm so anxious to get there in our conversation, but let me be quiet and you can ask some more questions so that we really lay the groundwork for this conversation.
Yeah. So that's a great bridge. So you've mentioned that, okay, mathematically we can calculate it out, but the chance of that hitting is pretty low. It's maybe 1 month we'll hit it and the next month not, and the next month not, the next month we hit it, but it's so up and down and crazy. So in your book, you explain this principle, and then you go over 4 myths of here's what's wrong. So what one of those myths is something that you'd like to highlight that kind of plays off of what we just talked about?
I think really the best one, and they're all good, which is why they're in the book. And quick gratitude to Elizabeth Hagenlofer, who helped us get this book onto the shelves. But the idea that saving first is going to work. I mean, people really don't think that that's true in today's world. We're recording this in 2024, and we hope that people are listening to it in 2034 and 2044. And the fact is, way back in the 1920s, people saved first. People didn't try to budget back then. And it's maybe because there were no computers, there were no calculators even. I'm not sure about that exactly, but I know there were no computers. And so we have today things that we think are going to be helpful to us. But the fact is, they're harming us. And that is the computer or the calculator or the app or whatever it is. So again, the myth is, does saving first, saving as a verb, really work? And we think about saving as a noun. And, you mentioned Robert Kiyosaki earlier. He even talks about savers or losers. And yet, if you go a little bit deeper, he's great for his sound bites.
Right.
He's talking about people that only store their money in savings as a noun. You're a teacher, right? You understand that the word save can also be a verb. And that's not what he's talking about. And it is what I'm speaking about when we talk about the myth of, does saving first, saving as a verb first, work? And it does. And we know this. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in many, many clients' lives. And I know back in the 1920s, that was the method that people used to get ahead. And I love that because our work out in the marketplace was very, very traditional. And the 1920s, obviously, a long time ago, were a period of tradition. And the tradition back then was that you save first, save as a verb.
So I think that's really powerful. And I know that people can resonate with that. I know that people have heard that before because people have heard things like pay yourself first or make yourself your first investment. But I think that's where it stops in a lot of people's lives because they don't know how to actually do that. Like, what are the mechanics behind it? So can you give insight into what you talk in your book on how to do that? Because I think that's more important than those sound bites, because sound bites sound sexy, sound extraordinary. But if you don't know how to do it, then no one ever takes action.
Very well said. So let me just tell a little personal story, if I may. So in 4th grade, my parents got me a milk cow, like for real, a dairy cow that I milked every day. And they taught me, and my parents were teachers, by the way, they taught me to save first. And so that's what I did. That's what my grandpa did. Like, it was in the conversation in our home. And so 4th grade, 7th grade, 11th grade, all through until I left for college, that was the habit that I had inside my tiny little business of milking the cows, selling the milk, breeding the cows, selling the calves. I was involved in 4-H. So that whole space became very, very real to me. Well, fast forward to 1988, I've graduated from college. I met my first job, which was at a bank. And now computers are just starting to come into our lives, and people were starting this idea of budgeting at a more computerized level. I guess apps didn't exist, but there was a way to easily calculate the math. And I saw all of these people that were trying to budget, and they never had any money in their savings account. And it was because budgeting was trying to measure forward. But I had already had, even though I was 22 years old, straight out of college, I had already had a long period of time in my life where I saved first because that's what I was taught to do. And I had earned some decent money through that period of time selling the milk and doing all that. And so I absolutely positively knew what worked. And while I didn't have life expenses as a fourth grader, I had expenses for buying the cows and buying the hay and taking them to the fair and all that. So I knew what incomes were, I knew what expenses were, I knew the job that saving first did. And so because of that, literally for all of my adult life, I have always just saved first. So you asked for mechanics. The way that I did that in my adult life fairly early on was learning about whole life insurance as a product and premiums that we pay into whole life. And premium is a tricky word in this space because we tend to think of premium as like a car insurance or home insurance premium, which is all expense. But in whole life insurance, premium, the definition of premium is that it builds cash value. It builds the asset called whole life. Maybe not in the first year or two, but as soon as you get past that in the policy, all of your premiums are building cash value. And so that is the way that I saved first for the first probably 25 years of my adult life, is literally just by paying premiums. Now with some paid-up additions too, but basically I saved first by paying the premiums on those whole life insurance policies. And Justin, I will admit to you, I didn't really know what I was doing in the early stages. I was just following what seemed to be the space for the community that I was in. But over time, I could see that it flat out worked. And so honestly, I just kept doing it.
I really like that. That was not the answer I was expecting you to give, because that wasn't what you gave in your book. But that was an extraordinary answer because I think it gives people options. There's not a one size option, but you can choose or even combine options to help them really maximize this. But you're choosing to deliberately pay premium into a guaranteed product that's going to last your entire life with liquidity and opportunity.
You got it.
Okay. So now, are you wanting to discuss, or do you want people to read the book to learn what is the option now that the technology is in place that potentially can enhance this?
I love that capability. So our lives today are so smartphone oriented. We have these apps and our health exists on these apps. Our personal finance exists on these apps. Our schedules exist on these apps. Our email, the list is just endless. And I'll admit, I'm not a super oriented towards my cell phone kind of person. In fact, I really resisted getting the smartphone. I had the old Motorola flip phone for a long, long time. Nevertheless, I got on board, and it is so helpful that there is an app that now, not budgeting app, not the myriad of apps out there that try to organize your personal finances in a look forward way. There is one that I'm aware of that drives that savings behavior that measures backwards. And that's a very key point that we talk about in the book. The way to get results, and this came from Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach, is to measure backwards. Let me give a personal health example, if I may, and then we can talk about the monetary. Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, so I had my children within a year of each other. So 2 kids, year and 8 days, 20 pounds on top of 20 pounds on a pretty small frame. So obviously I wanted to lose some weight. Well, if every day I was looking at, and you brought this up very early in our conversation today, if every day I was looking at how much weight I still wanted to lose, I would feel very defeated, very frustrated. I would not feel like I was making progress at all. Instead, if I looked backward at the progress I had made, the weight that I had lost already, then that was very motivating to me. And I was able to lose that extra pregnancy weight very quickly and efficiently without a lot of mental anguish that you hear so many people have as it relates to their health. Okay, so the difference was measuring backwards, looking back at the progress I had made and measuring that instead of looking forward to where I wanted to be and measuring that. Dan Sullivan refers to that as a gap. There's a gap between where I am and where I want to be. Well, our money's no different. And so with the app that we'll talk about the name and how to get it and all that here in a minute, with the app that exists today now, it drives savings behavior that enables us to measure backwards about the progress that we have made instead of trying to figure out forwards, which is what budgeting is. This app is so much more inspirational. It's so much more momentum building. It's so much more focused on the positive. And these are things that we need in our lives desperately around all areas of our life, but very specifically around the area of personal finance. Because as you said so well when you opened up our conversation, if you are feeling frustrated with your personal finance, you just want to give up and like literally not work on it anymore. And we know that's not
Right. No, I really appreciate that story. The looking backwards is powerful. It's powerful in money. It's powerful in health. It's powerful in relationships. And I hope that people can take that lesson, if they're not going to take anything else, but take that lesson as a way to measure your progress instead of always looking to how far the gap is. Look backwards at how far you've come, because that's really a big deal. So now let's dive in as we wrap up here. What is the app called? How do people access it? And why do you love it so much? What's the big reason you're seeing as the reason you like it so much?
So the app is called Currents. It's a made up word, Currence, Currents. And it is available by invitation only. So for your community of listeners, you as a listener will want to reach out to Justin in order to be invited into the app. And the app does not cost anything for the app itself. There are some bank charges and whatnot because the app is connected to an account. And again, by invitation only. So you can go to the website and look at it. The website is actually Live Currents, LIVECURRENCE. And Justin, I'm sure you'll put that website in the show notes. But frankly, I don't encourage people necessarily to go to the website except to just watch the little video that's there, because the value is getting properly introduced, not only so that you got the full benefits of the app, but that you fully understand the structure of the app plus the account that's going to drive behavior. And one of the biggest differences in that, in addition to what we talked about measuring backwards, is that you, as the owner of the app, you're in complete control of the account, are going to choose how much to spend. Most budgeting, even the save first approach, focuses on trying to save and chooses a percentage or a dollar figure to save, right? Like we've all been told, save 10% of your income, save 20% of your income, whatever the numbers are. Well, with the app, in order to drive the save first in bio, you choose how much you're going to spend. And what that does is it flips the equation and causes the save first behavior to occur. So it's a structure there, an app plus an account. It's going to drive savings behavior, help you measure backwards, and most importantly of all, give you a lot of confidence around your cash flow. And cash flow confidence is something that most human beings want. It doesn't matter if you're straight out of school and your capability is small, or you're in your later years and your capability is large, or you're in what most people call retirement period of time when you might not think about cash flow as much, or you at least might not want to think about cash flow as much. It doesn't really matter where you are in your life. The ability to drive that savings behavior, have a structure that does it automatically, and have the support that the structure provides, along with somebody like Justin to help guide you through getting it set up and automated, is invaluable. And there are already thousands of people. The app has a couple different iterations. There are already thousands of people on the 2 different versions of it that are seeing the benefits and gaining massive progress, sometimes within incredibly short periods of time, just because of the help that the app provides. Yeah. And in our Busting Budgeting Lies book, we talk about the app a little bit more and explain some of the psychology behind it and kind of thing.
I really liked how you said it flips the script. You're looking backwards. It's saving first. You're choosing what to spend, not choosing a percentage. And it goes really back to the beginning, how if you're on that where you're getting discouraged about budgeting and you're never getting ahead, or you're on that treadmill and you have the feelings of giving up, when you have your cash flow working for you on the other side of the spectrum, now all of a sudden you're empowered and you start thinking bigger. What impact can I make? What more can I do? Can I start a business? Can I help more people? Like it's completely opposite psychologically. Differences when cash flow is working versus not. And budgeting oftentimes doesn't let cash flow work. And currents oftentimes gives people the permission to make cash flow work, which changes their whole trajectory. So I've seen that firsthand with people we've worked with myself. But I thought that was a good dichotomy between our whole conversation today, that it ended there, is that it's empowering to have structure and system around cash flow versus the budgeting, which doesn't give you that.
Really well said. Yeah, it is so important that us human beings have positivity in our lives, a sense of control, automation as much as possible, so that we can be focused on those other things that truly matter way more. You know, what's interesting also is that cash flow issues don't go away. They literally just get bigger zeros on them. You know, the guy that's making $100,000 a year, it's got a certain level of cash flow issues. Well, the guy that's making $1 million a year has a different level, but there's still cash flow issues.
Yep.
And the guy that's making $1 billion has different cash flow issues. They're all just zeros. And so for every person out there, the peace of mind, the sense of productivity, the amazing positive possibilities that occur when cash flow is controlled are so fun to watch. And I would say for the average person, you know, average income, average household environment, the current structure can make up to a $2 to $3 million difference in that person's, that family's asset base over a lifetime. That's incredible.
No, that is extraordinary. And that's for people people don't think that far ahead. They have a hard time visualizing and capturing it, but that's a massive amount of difference when it comes to the life you're going to live. A $2 to $3 billion difference is going to be a lot more comfortable, a little bit more under control. You're not going to feel as panicked. It's you can call it life changing just because it is. It changes the way you live because you have so much more. So I appreciate you choosing to be here today. Can you let our audience know where can they find this book? And if they want to contact you, they want more information from you. They want to learn about the community you've built. They want to learn more about the plethora of content you've created. How do they find you? How do they find the book? Where do they get a hold of you?
Well, thank you for asking. The book is on Amazon as a Kindle version and as a paperback, and also as an Audibles version. So I read the audio that's there for that book. And as you have so kindly mentioned, there are a lot of other books that I have on Amazon. All of them have all three of those versions. I always really encourage people to think about how they learn best. Some people like to watch videos, some people like to listen to audio, and some people like to read. And so the thing that I'm looking most forward to is when AI has progressed to the place where I can feed it one of my books and it'll create a video of that book.
Right.
In the meantime, I'm on every social channel that you can think of. So YouTube's got a variety of videos if people prefer to learn that way. There's my own Prosperity Thinkers website. I have a LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think I'm even on TikTok. So pick your poison.
Awesome. Well, I would like if you could leave just one last words of wisdom before we close. I think the audience you're speaking to are intelligent people. They have found success. Almost all of them own businesses, but oftentimes they struggle with personal finance. They can't quite get it right. They don't know, they're making all this money, but it still feels like something is wrong. Is there any advice you have for that person on how do you move forward? What's the next step to start getting that right? Because they can really, because of how much money they're making, because of how innovative they are, because of how impactful they are, they can really dominate that space and really be comfortable with it. But they feel like it's this wall that they can't quite get over. How can they burst through that wall?
I have a very specific story from yesterday at my strategic coach attendance. So Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, I've attended for a long, long time. And one of the entrepreneurs there said, I have $1 million business and a $10 body. And what he meant was he wasn't spending any time, money, effort, or focus on having his body, his physical self, be as good as his business. And that is the issue around our personal finance. We have $1 million businesses and $10 personal financial balance sheets, income statements, list of insurance, wills, trusts, medical directives, fill in the blank.
Right.
We've literally spent $10 worth of time, money, and effort on that. So I believe the best thing a business owner can do is block out a period of time, a couple hours a month would probably do the job, and dedicate some time, energy, money, get help, right? When we need help, we get a coach.
Right.
And dedicate that effort to their personal finances so that their personal balance sheet and their personal income statement can look as good as their business balance sheet and their business income statement.
Awesome. That was an excellent. I think that's an extraordinary way to end. Everyone, please follow Kim. She is a wealth of knowledge. She's extraordinary. You can find her everywhere. Just Google her name and you'll find her. Appreciate you, Kim, and thank you.
You're welcome. It's a joy.